Hey, Kitty.
Hey, Kittie.
What's up, Kitty? Yo, Kitty.
Talk to him, Kitty.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby.
I am excited for the episode that we have for you all today. We have a beautiful guest, and I mean, she is beautiful. It's gorgeous.
No.
Her name is Zae Hudson. She is an author based in Dallas, and she is an advocate for marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Hey,
Thank
baby.
you.
So
Yes.
let's dive into it. We have two married women who get to have a conversation.
Yes. Amen.
You ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's talk.
So before we get into it, tell me,
Mhm.
before you married, what was your standpoint? What was your outlook and your orientation to marriages?
Oh, that's good. I just wanted marriage. I remember being 14 years old, ready to settle down. I've always been that type of girl. Like, I want to get married. Wasn't really into the having kids part, but I was like, I knew I wanted marriage. I knew I wanted to have someone that I could call my own. So I treasured it. But when it comes to the foundation, I didn't care. I just knew I get to live with someone and love someone. So marriage was always sacred to me. Let's put it that way.
Did you see marriages? Like, did you come from marriages?
Yeah. So my mom and dad have been together for a couple of years, but they've been married. So they were together for 20 plus years. They've been married now, I want to say maybe 14, 13 around that time. So yes, I come from a 2-parent household, never saw any arguing or anything like that. So my outlook on marriage was good. I was like, okay, I have a decent foundation or visual of what marriage should be.
Right. What do you think your values were before you entered your marriage?
Ooh, I just knew honor. I knew we had to honor each other. I knew there shouldn't be any infidelity. I knew, looking at my mother and father, I also believed that I understood how a man should behave in terms of being gentle. I never saw my dad cuss at my mom. I never saw my dad raise his voice. So I was looking for all of those things in my marriage.
Okay. Okay. That's good, because a lot of people don't have that foundation.
Yeah.
And I speak on that a lot. I was just speaking about it yesterday. I come from a family of marriages, but I've seen the good and the bad, right? But it never changed my orientation to marriage. I still wanted to be married because I was able to see what belonging and community was. But I also saw my family come in and intercede whenever they needed to, right? I was able to witness, because of course, you know, some of my uncles, they did some hurtful things to aunts and things like that. I've seen the heartbreaks. I've seen the trials and tribulations, but I also seen how they came back.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that I always took notice of. It was more of an emphasis on that. What was the bounce back like? Now, of course, I come from a divorced mom and dad.
Yeah.
I was really young when they divorced, and I watched my mom. It took her over 20 years to get past it. My dad cheated on my mom. He had an affair. He changed. And my mom didn't have those conversations. She actually protected him for a while from me knowing what really happened. And then when we had a deeper conversation a little later in life, actually right when I entered my 30s, when we had the conversation, she was honest about her part and she was honest about his part. But she had to get over that heartbreak first. It really hurt her because she wanted that. She wanted what marriage was, but she had her own problems.
Yeah.
Because she was trying to protect herself. Unconsciously, she was doing so, right? She was protecting herself. She had like certain coping mechanisms and stuff like that that were leaking into her marriage because she was trying to protect herself from being hurt like my aunts were by my uncles, which of course created a lot of demise in the marriage. But also, both of them raised in a church, being in a church, stuff like that. You know how it is, the church prioritizes marriage,
Absolutely.
right? And so sometimes it feels like you're forced into marriage, right? And I think that's what happened with both of my parents. They were young, right? And I think they felt like this is what we're supposed to do, which I believe that as well. But I don't think they took the time to really get to know each other. And so with her going through pregnancies and stuff, and my mom kind of had some controlling ways, him feeling like he was suffocated, plus he was still immature. He kind of made some mistakes.
Yeah.
But even still, it never changed my outlook
That's good.
on marriage. It's
That's
like, I
good.
still want to be married.
Right.
One day.
Yeah.
I still want to be married one day. Didn't think I was going to have kids. That was not on my
That's
mind. That
how
was
I
not on the
was too.
radar at
Like, where
all.
these kids come from?
And I think just because like I saw the sacrifice my mom had to make, you know, just as a single mother. And I knew that there was still a risk of being a single mother. Even if you do everything right, there was still a risk, which is why I think the problem is nowadays a lot of people are afraid of that.
Yes.
But so tell me how you and your husband met.
We met in, not middle school. We were in the 8th grade when we met.
Oh.
Young, same school. I remember I saw him in the gym that one day, light skin, curly hair. I was like, who is this?
Baby, if you watching this, we got the same story.
So, you know, we met in high school. We became best friends. I'm sorry, 8th grade. We became really good friends. Now, it was always one of those things where like he wanted me, but I was in another relationship, a very tumultuous, heartbreaking relationship, broke me down to my core. I was depressed, all of that. And so even though I was with the other person, my husband was always like, I'm here for you. Like, I want you. I knew he was there. But I think that at the time I was afraid of the unknown. Even though I knew he was better, I'm here. It sucks, but it's familiar for me. Like, what if I go here and he does the same thing? I'm going to stick with the demons I know. So that's how I was years. So me and that guy, I finally get to a place where I'm like, I can't do this no more. I'm better than this. We stopped talking. I remember praying, Lord, the next man that you bring into my life has to be my husband because I don't want to date anymore. I don't want to go through what I went through. That month after I prayed, my husband texted me because for a while we stopped talking because he was tired of being rejected. Right. So, you know, he finally one day just texted me, hey, Zae. And from then, it was like that. We went to a carnival. We went to like a state fair. This was in PA. And I remember we were there. We had such a great night. And he just felt so safe. That's the only way I could explain it. He felt super safe. And the night ended and he asked to kiss me. He kissed me. And it was like a light bulb went off. And I was like, I need to have him. Soon as I got home, I texted him like, look, I want to be with you. He was with somebody else, dropped her. We got together and it's been...
He said, I found my wife.
Yep. He said, yeah, sorry.
ma'am.
He said he literally told her like, yeah, there's somebody else. And she was like, hey, I understand. Because I was always it for him.
Baby,
so
when
that
you
was...
know who your wife is, you know who your wife is. It's
when
like,
we were
look.
14, he was I 14 in the 8th grade? However old I was. He
About
would
14.
tell me,
yeah.
I'm going to marry you one day. And I'd be like, okay. He would tell me that all the time. And I would say, okay. So seeing us now, there are moments we have now where we're like, babe, we're really married with 2 kids.
Ain't that crazy?
From 8th grade. And people, they knew we were supposed to be together. They knew. But I'm like, babe, we're really together. Like, what are the odds of that happening? You know what I mean?
Our stories sound way too simple.
Really?
Let me see. It was about the 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade. Me and Los, it was about 7th, 8th grade. I saw him. He used to wear a low ponytail, really curly hair. He's mixed with Mexican and black. And where I'm from, I'm so used to seeing Mexicans. I'm so used to seeing black people. And it's like the perfect mix. Right? And I remember his laugh. I want to say we shared science class. I want to say it was science. I can't remember which class it was, but I remember the first time I saw him and his laugh. He has a very distinct laugh. And it always stuck with me. We were always cool. We were always close. I still remember the girl he was dating at that time because first of all, why you in my way?
Right,
but I still
knew
who he was dating at that time. I'm like, I don't like that. But I never, I was always cool with him. We lost touch for a while because I ended up going to Dallas schools. I ended up going to Booker T.
Okay.
And so left for a while. I think, I left 9th grade year. I had been in that school system because I went to Duncanville.
Okay.
Stayed in Pleasant Grove, but I went to Duncanville. Because my mom didn't want me in Dallas school system.
Right.
She wanted me to have a really good education. And I remember when I went over to Booker T, I left all of Duncanville behind. Just kind of had a new life going on of the art, stuff like that. Didn't see him for years. I mean, a long time. And I was actually dating somebody. When I saw him, I had a party. And my ex-best friend invited him.
Ex-best friend.
Yeah, heavy on the ex-best friend.
Yeah.
And, she was good for something. But she invited him, and the guy that I was dating was at the party. Ooh. And I remember when he walked in, and he had on this 2-piece, like, silk set. I thought it was great. He swears it's brown, but that's an argument for another day. And I remember when I saw him, and my face said everything.
Wow.
And the guy I was dating, I know he saw my face.
Ooh.
I know he saw it. It was just like when he came in, it was like, And because that guy left that night, he didn't talk to me again after that.
I wouldn't leave.
He
Well, okay,
ghosted me. I was like, hey, where you go? Nothing. Okay. Call the next day. You good? Nothing. I got ghosted.
Yeah.
And then we got back in contact. But of course, we were just doing our own thing for years, just kind of like figuring out what we wanted out of life, dating other people and stuff like that. But we always hung out.
Yeah.
We always hung out and we kept it at a friendship. Had never kissed, had never talked about dating. It was always like we're hanging out. Then hung out with each other's families, been to parties together, all that. And we just, football games, all that. But we kept it at a friendship. But I'm not going to lie. Every guy that I dated in between time was just like, if he ever called me, it was like, hey,
I'm out of here, literally.
What you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go.
Yep.
It would be moments, this is how I knew we were in sync. It would be moments where I was having like car troubles or something like that. And he'll just call out the blue. And be like, hey, you good? No, my tire's flat.
Wow.
My brake light just went out. And he never was like, oh, do you have someone to help you? It was always like,
I'm on my way.
Drop the location. And so that right there, he reminded me of my grandfather. And I was so close. Yeah. That is the one man I was closest to more than anybody. My grandfather was like grandfather/dad, closest person. And I had lost my grandfather at that time. Yeah. And I would see his qualities in him. It's like, oh my God. But yet still, we just were not ready. Friends. We were just not ready. And I remember the time he asked me to come to Old Chicago in Cedar Hill when Old Chicago was still open. And I was hanging out with somebody I was dating and I left. I was like, yeah, I got to go. I'm not going to lie. I lied about it. I was like, I got to do such and such at home. That was not true whatsoever.
That person watching like, oh.
Yeah. You're going to know the truth now. But I remember I was sitting beside him at the bar and he was going through something. He just never spoke about what he was going through. But his random calls will always tell. He'll get really quiet sometime and like zone out, watch the game or something, but he would still be zoned out. Like he'll converse, but he'll still be zoned out. And I remember my phone was going off. It was going like crazy because the dude was calling.
Oh,
like,
Lord.
He'd have pulled up to my house like, where are you at?
Oh, my God.
And he saw it. And I think that's why he didn't trust to even date me at the time. Because he's probably like, she's a player.
You gonna do that to me too?
Yeah. And then, some time went by again where it was just like, we just hang out whenever we hang out. Wow. But the moment that we decided we were going to be serious, even before that moment, and this is crazy because I never tell anybody this. This kind of feels therapeutic for me.
Okay, good.
Feels good. Hold on. But look, I never really talk about this, so this feels good. But I remember we got back in contact. I made a post, and it was about like all the green flags of a man. Hadn't talked to him in years, and here he goes popping up on my comment in my comment section, talking about, yeah, I got all of those. Like, hold on, whoa, and I'm like, is that who I think that is?
Wow.
So I don't remember if I think I hit him up. I think I texted him. I don't remember if it was me or him, but I believe it was me that texted him. We decided to go hang out, and we actually took like half the day of hanging out, something that we hadn't done. And we went out to eat. We went out like shopping for stuff. And we were like two children dancing in a parking lot.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Playing in the stores and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it felt so organic. It felt so organic. And then his avoidance popped up. Being afraid of me. Being afraid to be vulnerable and to connect. And he started playing those little games like, okay, we were just talking consistently. Where are you at? And so I remember my assistant had came in town. And at that point, I was like, I'm done with him. I'm not even about to play these games with him.
So you're just gonna give up that quick?
Yeah, I was like, I don't have time for that.
Wow.
Because he was consistent with going ghost from time to time. He'll just go. Then I was like, okay. But since I never dated him, it never really bothered me.
Okay.
And so at this time, I'm like, I thought we really shared a connection. Because he even texted me after. I was like, I actually miss you. And I'm like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right? And I remember my assistant came in town. And me and him, we hadn't really spoke. And I remember he called me and I was upset when he called me. Like I was sitting there contemplating if I was going to take that phone call.
I ain't going to answer.
And my sister was sitting in the car and I got at the car and I told him, I said, I was about to block you
Ooh.
I was like, because I don't have time for these mind games.
Yeah.
I was like, we really had a connection.
We too
there.
grown too.
Yeah,
Because
I'm
how
like,
old were you at that
just
point, if you don't mind me asking?
32,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
32, 31, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like, nah, could have been 30. Baby, I was in my 30s. Okay. But I remember that I told him, I was like, I was going to block you. I was like, I don't have time for this. I said, we really had a connection there.
Yeah.
And you just messed it up. And he's like, I know, I was going through this. I don't care what the
you was going
problems
through,
are.
yeah.
I said, we done did this one too many
Yeah.
times. I was like, I really like you. And so then he was like, well, can you come out with me to get a drink? No, because I'm about to go get these pictures from at home. I'm about to go get these pictures. And so the next day, he called maybe like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And me and my sister were going to get one of my office chairs. And I told him, I said, I'm at Sam's right now. And he knew where my office was. Yeah, he knew where my office was. So I'm pulling up with this chair in my trunk.
Yeah.
And then he pulls up in his truck and I'm like, oh. And he pulls the chair out. He takes it upstairs, opens the box, doesn't read any instructions, gets his toolbox and puts the chair together.
That was his apology. Let me put this chair together for her.
I think it was more than that. Like I sat right there. My assistant, she's so messy. My assistant, she was sitting on the couch and I'm sitting here. He's on the floor putting his chair together and my eyes are just glowing. I'm like,
you in love.
She's looking at me. She's like, you like it. And I'm like, can you mind your business over there? And so I really had this strong feeling that day. I'm like, that is my husband. If that's not my husband, like this has to be like it was just that feeling of love that was so strong.
Yeah.
It was so strong. But I didn't trust him. I didn't trust him because I'm like, you're gonna do that thing again. We're gonna connect.
I understand.
And you're gonna do it again. And so I told him, he was like, well, I want to go to Sawgrass, get something to eat. And I was like, I don't believe that. And I said, you know what? The only way I'll take you serious is if you drop the pen when you get there. And my assistant had my phone and he dropped the pen when he got there. She was like, he dropped the pen.
That would be me.
She's like, he dropped the pen. And I was like, you better get it right. And we went and sat down and eat with him. And I was sitting beside him. And his mom was there. I think I had only met her maybe once. And his mom was there. And I was sitting beside him. And I put my head on his shoulder. And his mom told him after that, she was like, she's in love with you.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Mama knew.
Yeah, she was like, she put her head on your shoulder. That girl is in love with you.
Yeah.
And it's been good.
That's so sweet.
Ever since.
Amen.
It feels good to give that story.
Sometimes it's good to, you know what? I do that too. Because, sometimes they be pissing us off. Yeah. And I be thinking like, you know what? Let me think back to why I even... You know what I'm saying? To rethink about the story, and it just reminds you, like, yeah, this is good pickings. We did good.
And I say that because when you said sometimes you look and you're like, wow, we're married.
I can't believe that we're together.
He literally said that, and he says it often. I do too. But he literally said that a couple of days ago. He's like, we really have a child together. We're really married. It's like
crazy.
Yes, from school?
When we met. Yes. Yes.
And it's like, we together?
Yeah.
I'm like, you my dog.
Yeah, literally. My husband and I have conversations like that almost every night. Like, we look at each other like, we really together. Like, 8th grade to now, like, who would have thought?
Yeah.
And my husband, we've been through a lot. He was in the military. We've been through a lot.
Oh, he was in the military.
He was in the military. Absolutely. I mean, he didn't get deployed or anything, but what the military did to his mind.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't think people really understand that. Like, that's a whole different environment.
Yes.
Different structure, different rules, different dynamics when you're going into the services. Yeah. I don't think people understand that even if you're not deployed, it still does something to your brain chemistry. So even when you respond, it can be something that you would typically think wouldn't trigger a person. Yeah. And their response would be different. You can say something, and because of the way the services, the Marines, the Marines, the Army, the Navy, anything, the way that they break you down in those chambers, a person can say something to you and they have already changed the way you view yourself. So it can be the most smallest thing, the most tiniest thing, the most minuscule thing that can trigger you.
Absolutely.
And then you can become explosive. Your aggressions can become outward. And I don't mean physically. It can simply be just you being verbal, or you shutting down, or you withdrawing, right? Or having just moments of constantly internalizing the negative things that were said to you in the services.
Yeah, it definitely jacked him up because right before he got into the military, that's when he was talking about like, oh, I'm gonna marry you. We're 20 years old at this time. He gets into the military. I see a whole different side to him. The anger, the aggression. He's more anxious now. So he has anxiety, all of that from being in the military. And back then I didn't realize that it was a product of that. But now at the age I'm at now and, you know, my faith, I see now like being there amongst all those other people, like you said, the way that they do it, he said they basically strip you of your identity.
Yes.
And you know, a man without an identity, that's, you know what I mean? So I was like, you know what, babe, yeah, it did a work on you. It did a work on him. So we've been through so much.
So then tell me, because you said that was about around age 19, 20?
Yeah, he joined in 2015. So yeah, we were probably about like 19, 20 years old. Yeah.
When did you all marry?
We got married in 2018. No, 2016. Good Lord. So we got married a year later. So I was like 20 and I got pregnant at the same time.
Ooh.
So we were,
Yeah. How was that on your marriage? The pregnancy?
It was hard. I mean, even me getting pregnant and, you know, we at first were like, hey, like, we can't do this. We were agreeing about it. But then something switched in him. He's like, I want to be a father. And I was like, I can't do it. So I know, trigger warning, I was like, I need to get an abortion because I'm not ready. And so I ended up not getting one because I'm like, you know, he wants this. You know what I mean? Like, so I, you know, kind of told myself, I'm going to go through with this because I love you. That caused me to resent him to a crazy level. So I'm pregnant. I end up moving to Colorado because that's where his first duty station was. I'm by myself. It's my first time being away from my parents at 20 years old. It was hard on us. It was very hard. That was one of the harder times in our lives.
Because in a sense, the military stripped him of his identity, but you having to change environments almost stripped you of yours as well. It was the same experience, just different, right? The same situation, pretty much.
Literally, yeah.
So I can only imagine, and then I'm sure he had to be away from home quite often.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a different element from you. So you have the obligation and demands of a wife. Mother as well, becoming a mother as well, right? And then I don't think people really understand how much we endure as women and wives, right? It's like we're trying to be our own emotional support and get whatever it is that we have going on, plus our hormones. Being pregnant is a whole different ball game of emotional turmoil and hormones, right? Then seeing that your body's transitioning, you know, people highlight the beautiful parts of pregnancy, but they don't talk about when you're looking at your body change. It's like, who am I?
Literally,
now? Like my body doesn't look the same. I'm crying for no reason, right? I'm angry. I don't understand why.
Yeah, it's
the things that I typically would do half the time, I don't even want to fix myself up.
Yeah.
But then I have these demands as a wife. It's like I still have to fulfill my marital duties. I still have to be present for my husband. And yours was in the services. So I can only imagine the emotional labor that had to take place of you, yourself, and also him probably having anger and frustrations that he's possibly dealing with. And you're trying to take in all of that, trying to be his safe space, trying to be your own safe space.
And we're young. So the age played a part because not only is his identity is gone, but he's about to step into this new role as a father and a husband all in one. He's also a 20-year-old man who would be living his life normally, right? So I have the baby. I'm, like you said, I'm going through all these different things. He's out partying. So it was like a moment where he wasn't even all the way involved because he was so separated and just withdrawn, basically. So he's out partying. I'm at home. At that age, I'm not where I am now, mature enough to be like, okay, wait, he's going through a lot. I'm thinking, why aren't you here? Why are you out partying? And I'm at home, you know? So there was that battle. So there were a lot of different factors at play in how our marriage panned out that year.
And see, that right there, especially with you trying to create a foundation, right? And you all are young. And whenever we do things in our youth, when we do things when we're young, I'm not going to say our youth, but I mean, pretty much 19, 20, you're
we're
still
babies.
A baby, right? But when you do things when you're young, you don't really know how to create the foundation, right? Everything's just kind of based off of what do I think?
What do I feel?
Yeah. It's based off of feelings more like, I love you, right? I don't want to lose you. I enjoy your company. So this is what I'm supposed to do. And then it also starts to become that self-neglect, right? But
Yeah.
also sometimes because we neglect ourselves, we want so bad for this to work out.
Yeah.
We neglect ourselves. We'll minimize our own needs. Like, okay, you start having those conversations like, okay, well, maybe I am tripping, even if there are some problems, and you minimize your needs and you prioritize your spouse's needs. It's very easy for you to prioritize your spouse's needs.
Yeah.
And then you start feeling resentment, not just towards yourself, but towards them as well, because I prioritized you
over me.
I minimized myself for you, right?
Yep.
I wanted you to be happy at the expense of my happiness. And then that resentment starts to brew. And we know when resentment comes up in a marriage or a relationship, it can cause so much turmoil.
It's heavy.
In itself. I'll say that when I was pregnant, because me and my husband, we had our last baby together, that was hard.
Yeah.
That was hard considering where I was in my career and where I was going.
Yeah.
And it was a shock. It's like, oh no. And oh my God, I had so much sadness because I was like, I'm about to lose what I was working towards. And even my assistant, when I called her, I was crying.
Oh.
I was like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, we were almost there. We had so many plans. And I thank God because God he allowed it to come like double once I had the baby. But also in the time that I was pregnant, there was a lot of medical concerns that I was having as well. And it was so scary because it was like that life and death scare, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so I'm pregnant. I have the pregnancy going. And then I don't know if I'm even going to make
Be
it
alive
through this pregnancy, right? And so then I'm looking at my other kids. I'm like, it was so much. And he was always supportive. He was like, we're going to be okay. And I'm like, what if I'm not here for my babies? Like, I finally have the life that I've desired for so long, given the fact that I made mistakes when I was younger. In my 20s, I have so many moments, even now, where I'm like, I wish I could just erase my 20s and go back over and do this again because I made so many mistakes. And so I'm like, I finally got the life that I prayed for. Out of all of the repenting, asking God to forgive me, forgiving myself, I finally got the life, and it was like it was going to be taken away. And I was so terrified. I'm so grateful I have the mother that I have.
Yeah.
And the intercessors, because baby, they were praying. Okay.
Amen.
They were praying. They was like, no, we're going to pull you out of this. And I always tell my sister, I remember, Lord, and I hope my husband don't kill me. I called my assistant before I even called my husband because I didn't know how to even bring the news to him. Plus, I knew he was at work.
Yeah.
So I had a moment. I had cancer, I had cervical cancer, right? And the stage that I was at was pretty scary. It was scary. My mom and they were praying. I mean, they were praying day in, day out. And I remember when I went to the doctor to get my results, the last time, and I'm trying not to get teary-eyed because this was
me
like,
too.
look,
I'm so
look, that's why I have my tissue right there because I know me. I'm trying not to get teary-eyed, but I remember I laid on the bed in the doctor's office, and I was so afraid. I was like, "Ooh, he gonna come and bring me some bad results." I'm like, I'm terrified. I'm scared. And he came in, and his face was even surprised.
He said,
like he didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
I remember when he sat in front of me and he looked. He was just like. He's looking at the paper like, and I'm like, what is your
What's
faith
going
saying?
on? Yeah.
And then he tells me, it was basically just
gone.
That's the easiest way to put it.
Because God is good.
And I'm sitting here just like, what do you mean? He said, it's not there.
Amen.
And if you can see the way both of our faces look, and my eyes were turning red because I'm like, I know I'm not tripping. I'm breathing hard. He's sweating in the face because, of course, it looks like, okay, hold on. My credits as a physician, this is making me look like I don't know what I'm talking about. But me having nursing experience, I've always read the lab results. So I was able to see, no, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And I remember I sat in that car. It was so much for me to take in that I just broke down in tears. I was like, and I called my assistant.
Good.
And she's so supportive. She's screaming.
I would have been too.
She's screaming.
Shouting.
She's like, God is good.
Yeah.
I was praying. And I'm like, the prayer warriors came out.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know how to tell my husband. even my kids,
Mm.
like even when I brought it to my daughters, they cried because it was scary.
Of course.
And it changed me because I was always like hyper vigilant. I was
Mm.
always on my feet. Like, I got to take care of this. This has to be done. Because me in my head, it's like, what if when I have the baby, I ain't here anymore? Like, I got to make sure y'all good. Y'all have
things
to be
are in
taken care
order.
of.
Okay.
Yeah. And it just was so much. But through the process, so my husband's loving me through this, right? I'm fluctuating on my emotions. I'm having random pains out of nowhere. And these are like random cervical pains that you can feel just out of nowhere. It'll be times at night where my back is hurting me, but my cervix is hurting me as well. And a lot of times I wouldn't tell him because I didn't want him to worry. Plus, I don't think he could really understand. He doesn't have a cervix.
Right.
He don't understand what that pain feels like. So a lot of times I didn't even tell him when I was in pain. I would be sitting down probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning crying because I was in pain and I didn't want to tell him because I didn't want him to worry. Right. So it was a lot of fear that was going on. I think for him, because I would get silent so many times, he wouldn't understand what was going on. And he would internalize it like it's me towards him. It's like I was having an internal conflict. And it's not that I didn't trust, I couldn't tell him. I didn't want to. Because even still, me as a wife, I was trying to protect him as well.
And that's not even your role, but that's what we do, don't we? That's not even our role.
Yep. And I was still trying to protect him. And then when I was having the baby, I can honestly say that was the worst delivery that I had.
Oh,
that was the worst delivery
Was it painful?
I had.
Just the pain, or?
Oh no, it was scary. I was going to either lose me. They were going to lose me, or we were going to lose the baby. It was literally, it was so scary. And for him, I can say this, in a hospital, I was angry with him because I wanted more from him. But he was afraid.
He didn't know what to do.
And he wasn't, he went into a shell because he was afraid, right? Trying to hold that exterior, that strong, stoic exterior. He's trying to hold on to it. And me, I'm thinking like, I'm hurting. These nurses keep running in and out of this room. They're panicking. I'm panicking. My anxiety's up the roof. My anxiety's so bad I was shaking. I was like shaking, trying to hold back my tears, but I couldn't because I was crying because it's like, am I about to lose my baby?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, and then you're putting all these different tubes in me, stuff that I have never seen before. I've been in this field for a long time, but I've never been an L&D nurse. So I'm looking at stuff as some medical, utensils and instruments that I can identify. If you're speaking in medical jargon, I can identify what you're saying. But some stuff I'm like, no, this is L&D nursing. I ain't never heard this. What is this?
Yeah.
And I was afraid. And I know for a fact, I want to say I was in labor. I was definitely in labor for more than 24 hours. I was definitely in labor for more than 24 hours. We were there for a good minute from the moment I got there. And he didn't know how to take it.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated because I'm like, I needed more from him, but he was scared.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I'm here, but what do I do?
Can I do?
At this moment, it's like he's useless because what do I do? I can support you and pat you on your back, but I can't take the pain away from you.
And that's what he wants. They want to swoop in. Yeah.
So he started becoming really frustrated. Like, even when his mom was talking to him, especially the moment where it really became an emergency and she had to leave, he's like, Mama, you got to go.
Ooh.
And she was like, I want to see my grandbaby. He's like, you got to go. And even he snapped on her because he didn't know how to take this. You have your wife that's on a hospital bed and you hearing, this is a person, him with no medical experience. He don't know what people are talking about. He don't know how to read these machines. He's like, what does this number mean? And all these people are running in and they're panicking. It's like, what is going on? Yeah. And that was a scary situation. Yeah. And after, when we finally got over that, oh my God, that was the worst experience. I had to sit and realize, because we had a conversation. It was a quick conversation though. But I had to sit and realize that he just showed his fear differently.
Yeah.
He tried to protect me from seeing it. Right. And here I am upset at him because I'm like, why are you not doing something for me? But he's afraid. Yeah. And he told me that after that. We ended up having a really big argument. And that was after I had the baby. And it was more because I was exhausted. Yeah. I was frustrated. I was exhausted. It was a lot. I'm having to come home. And I think I came home on Mother's Day. I came home on Mother's Day. And my babies, they were all so happy to see me. Oh. And all of them were in a room. I have a newborn baby. I haven't had any rest. But yet I have my babies who still need me. Yeah. Right? and they're still trying to have a conversation and stuff like that. And I'm exhausted. I mean, like, I just want to sleep. And it was such a buildup. And then we're new to this. Like, we've had children before, don't get me wrong, but this is still new. This is new. It's a different experience. And I still had a lot of pain after I had my baby. It was still moments where I was just in a lot of pain because of what I had endured in the hospital. So I would have moments where the rest of my pregnancy, easy. That one, it'd just be sporadic pains out of nowhere that would make me break down because I would hurt so much. I would literally be moments where still trying to protect him from seeing me like this. I'm sitting over the sink crying because I'm in so much pain, but I didn't want him to see it. It's just funny how many sacrifices
we make, right?
And sometimes, because I had to even check myself, he made sacrifices too.
Absolutely. I had to do the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget. Like, as women, I think because we're so emotional, there are times where we kind of do think more about ourselves. And that was something my husband and I had a problem with. I remember when we were separated at one point, I remember, and only the Lord helped me to see all of this. And the Lord was like, you need to apologize to him. And I was like, for what? I'm like, what did I do? He's the one that, But I realized there was a lot, and that was one of them. I wasn't acknowledging his sacrifices. I'm thinking what you're doing, I don't see it. I don't see it because I think I know the best way. I think I know the right way we should do this. It can help both of us. But I didn't let him lead. I didn't let, he's making all these sacrifices and I didn't notice it. And I had to apologize. Like, I'm so sorry that I didn't recognize. And it was the Lord that showed me he did this and this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. And I missed it. I had missed it. Yeah.
Isn't God amazing?
Absolutely.
He is, because he has a way of whooping us.
Oh, what? Getting us all the way together.
Because, sometimes, my pride still gets the best of me. And I'll be sitting right there just like, no, because remember, Lord, listen to me real quick. Just hear me out. He's like, no. And I have to sit there and be like,
no, literally. That suppressing all of that, that's the hardest part.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in here and smile like I was just in this bathroom fighting the air. Like, I'm going to come out and I'm going to smile and be like, hey, baby. Like, I wasn't just fighting this air.
Yes.
In the bathroom.
Literally.
I always think about that. And I literally be fighting the air just like,
No, literally.
Because, every once in a while, our spouses can test us.
Oh, absolutely. Test us more than anything. More than our kids sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, boy,
It's like you turn around.
No.
You know what? You better be glad I love you.
No, yeah.
I'm going to go outside, take this walk, and I'm going to come back.
Yep.
Because this is bigger than me and you.
Yeah.
And I committed to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's another hardship in today's time is people don't understand what commitment really is. Because what do people really commit to?
Right.
Most people don't have a foundation that they even commit to. And you won't understand how intense the commitment is when you marry.
Yeah.
It is something different. You took vows before. Well, I'm speaking from us.
Right.
Because of our faith. Taking vows, and God is a witness to that, of that covenant, that means that we have to really take this serious, right? God bared witness to us making a lifetime commitment through the good and the bad, the sickness and in health. We made a commitment. So just because we have moments where we argue doesn't mean that I say I don't want to be with you anymore. Just because you have hardships or you have frustrations or maybe you have your lows in life does not mean that I abandon you in this lowest moment, because I wouldn't want God to abandon me.
That's right. That is right.
God has not yet abandoned me. And so why would I do that to you? If God made this commitment to me and I have committed my life to God, right? And in this commitment of my marriage, this is still another commitment of life to God.
Absolutely.
I can't abandon my marriage.
You know what else the Lord showed me in that is a lot of times you look at marriage as just, okay, this is marriage. But sometimes God will remind me, that's also my son.
Yes.
Right? So I need you to take care of my son because I gave you my son.
Yes.
So yes, you're married to him. I need you to honor my son and then don't treat him the way that your flesh wants you to treat him. And another thing I struggle with when it comes to the commitment, because you're right. Back then when I first got into it, I didn't get saved until 2018. So we had been married 2 years before then. Those 2 years, I was not into the commitment.
Yeah.
We were arguing. I'm like, I'm out of here. We're getting a divorce. The way I would throw that out there like that, we're getting a divorce. I'm ready to leave. There are times I went back to my mom's house because I wasn't ready for it. And even then, the Lord reminded me, once I got saved, you cannot speak that stuff. You cannot speak that you're going to get a divorce and you're going to walk out of here. You can't do that. And the way I was throwing that out, then I wonder why we were going through all that stuff.
Into your marriage.
Yes, every time. And I was, he would tell you now, like, there was one time he told me, he said, babe, if you say it again, I will really give you what you're saying. I will give you what you're asking for. I didn't say it again after that.
It's like, no, Lord, I was just bluffing.
No, literally.
I wasn't serious. I was just
but
angry.
I was angry. And I was like, you know what? I'm out of here because I don't need this because I didn't have that foundation yet. That's when I got saved. I'm like, you know what? There was so much that I did that I shouldn't have done. I shouldn't have told him I was going to divorce him. There was so many things that I learned. But the commitment in the beginning was very surface level. Yeah. Oh, I'm married to you, but I didn't honor it. There was no honor there. It was just, this is my obligation. Then it turned into honor when I understood what honor really was.
Yes.
So,
you know, and that's the reason why I speak so heavy on honoring your spouse.
Yeah.
The Bible tells us to do that as well, right? But all things that you're called to do with the Lord is pretty much similar in your marriage,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I have to respect, I have to love, I have to obey the Lord. Yeah. The moment that, especially in today's society, a woman hears obedience, it's like, oh my God, here we go. But this is my thing. If a man is not obeying the Lord, if he is not, and because this is where leadership, this is the foundation of leadership.
Speak on it.
If he's not obeying what God calls him to do or obeying God's will, his household is going to feel it.
Absolutely.
Right? It is going to trickle down into his marriage, his relationship with his kids, the foundation of his home, if he's not obedient to the Lord. Why am I not going to obey my husband who is obedient to God? Because even in me obeying my husband, I'm still being obedient to God because he put us two together. He called us two together. God didn't, this wasn't a mistake on his end. He said, I'm going to put you two together. And he has to obey me. And you obey your husband because he's obeying me. People struggle with that. It's like, why? Look, do you know how hard leadership is?
Yeah.
My husband has to answer to something greater to him. He can't lead us blindly. He has to sit and figure out, okay, Lord, is this what I'm supposed to do? In the moments that maybe he has life that's going on, or maybe he has too many distractions that's moving him away from God, I still have to come in as a wife because I'm still part of that armor too. I got to come in because I got to push you closer to God. And maybe I can push you closer to God if you hear me talk more about him. If you hear me pray more. If you see what God is doing in my life, I can push you closer. Because if we move the goalposts, your leadership is going to start to fail. Right?
Absolutely.
And if your leadership is going to start to fail, I'm going to become afraid. And then this is going to test my faith in God, right? We can't allow Satan to have that much space and that much room to come in. So I am going to obey my husband. And I'm going to do it joyfully.
And I'm going to do it well.
And I'm going to do it proudly. Because I know you have to answer to something greater than you. You have to answer to God. And that's hard. That is a huge sacrifice for a man to make because they have a male ego.
Absolutely.
Me and my assistant was talking about that when we were out of town. And I was telling her, I said, you know, when we were talking about Jesus and things like that, I said, Jesus was still a man. Can you imagine how hard it was for Jesus to deny his own ego?
Being persecuted as a man, what that's like. Come on.
And yet he still had to be there to protect his people. He still had to make sure everyone was okay. He was still called to love, called to be a savior. And in these moments where I'm being tempted, as long as I have Satan is asking me left or right, hey, you want to try this?
Right.
Why don't you do this? I am stripped of my ego as a man. I am tempted right now. It's like, and that's what I look at when I look at my husband. The temptations are always there. They're always there. They're always there. But just like Jesus had to prioritize humanity, and he had to prioritize God, I still have to obey God's will. My husband still has to do that exact same thing for us. So everything I do as a wife is going to be proudly.
Yeah.
And if society says you shouldn't do this, baby, mind your business.
Yeah. No, literally. I mean, there's so much in that, because one thing I always say is the way that we are with our husbands will directly reflect your relationship with the Lord.
Yes.
So if you struggle obeying your husband,
Yes.
or taking from him in terms of, like, let's say he wants to give you something, let's say he wants to pour into you, you have a hard time receiving that, you're probably like that with God.
Ooh.
So a lot of people in their marriages, that's why they struggle, because obeying is probably because you can't obey the Lord.
Yes.
And it comes to, like, it's like a power struggle, right? Sometimes women, we think that, because I think what the problem is, they look at obedience as servitude.
Yes.
And that's two different things now. I can obey you, I can serve you, but I'm not your slave.
Yes.
I'm not your slave. You know what I mean? So there's that. It has to reflect, right?
Yes.
And I remember there was a point in time where I didn't understand what my husband was going through as a leader. So back then when we were young, I'm looking at him like, boy, you don't know what you're doing. He didn't, but it was okay. I didn't think it was okay back then. So I'm like, well, he couldn't really manage his money well. He wasn't good with that. He wasn't responsible. He would get a job and leave. And so then I would try to tell him, babe, look, you got kids now. You gotta, and he would, the pride would come up, because I'm telling him what he shouldn't be doing. And I had to realize that it's okay for him to struggle in that, because he was learning. He had to learn, because like you said, you have to drop down our ego. We have to drop down our pride. Not only I have to be submitted to the Lord, but I have a family that I have to lead now. So there is a lot. And then the temptations come in. And my husband and I, we are very open about that. One thing I think that a lot of people look at us like, whoa. Even my best friend sometimes is like, Zae, I don't know how you do it, because if my man admitted something like that to me, I'd be in shambles. But my husband is able to tell me all the temptations that he faces and the struggles and all of that. Though. We are very open. Yes.
That's the type of transparency
we need. Yes.
That's good. Just to highlight obedience just one more time, just to talk about that quickly, because I work with couples, right? I specialize in this. And there's a lot of moments where this conversation will come up, especially for men in positions where they have to lead. And me and my husband, it would be moments like I'll do it in the slickest way. I'll make it into humor. He used to say certain things like, I'm going to say this, or I'm going to do this, or we can do this. I'm like, you're going to block our blessings if you do that. I used to say it really subtle, but it's because the word does teach us that if the husband is not obedient to the Lord, it will block your blessings. Not just his blessings. Us. Okay, the household. It comes down, it's going to trickle down. And now he says it to me. It's funny because he says it to me now, you're going to block our blessing. I'm like, hold on, I was saying that because you leading it. But you know what? I'm going to take that because you're absolutely right. But you're right. People do think obedience is servitude. It's almost like you're a slave in your marriage. No, that's not
what it is.
The case. Does the Bible not call us to serve one another?
Yep.
I can believe that Jesus, his walk on this earth was serving.
Absolutely.
Without looking for anything in return. Sometimes what we see, especially as wives in today's time, is that you think that you're supposed to get something back.
Oh, yeah.
Something tangible, something physically back, something materialistic back because you've served.
Right.
Do you not believe that you serve God even through your husband?
Right.
Do you not understand how that works? Baby, I take pride in serving. I don't care what it is. Yes.
Yeah.
If my husband says, baby, can you get this? I'm going to make the plate. I'm going to do everything and I'm going to do it proudly. And I'm going to find joy in doing that because it's so much greater than just my husband. Once again, this is a foundation that God created and God don't make mistakes. I think that that's one thing that women need to understand because even the Bible talks about a quarrelsome wife. It talks about that.
Absolutely.
And when I was speaking about that, because I spoke about that a number of times, the nagging wife and things like that, it literally says that it's better to sit at the edge, on top of the edge of the roof of a house than be in the home with a quarrelsome wife. That is a lot
That's right.
to take in. And that's something I had to realize. And I'm glad that I don't nag about certain things in my marriage, but I had to learn this over time. Like sometimes we nag because we want things to be done our way. Our pride makes us want to control everything, right? And some women can't come out of that because they haven't faced humility. They haven't faced the humbling experience yet,
humble,
right? I always say humility Having a humbling experience is what kills that pride.
Yep.
Mm-mm. If it is something that is simply bothering me, I don't want to nag my husband.
Yeah.
Just because you do something differently than me doesn't mean you did it wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain about that because I know exactly how much discord it can create in our marriage. If I'm constantly nagging you and minimizing you, you're going to feel like something's wrong with you. Because even in that sense, I'm tearing down your self-worth as I start coming towards your character and who you are as a person. If I break you down, I am exposing you to more temptation out in that world. Because as we previously discussed, if I expose you to that temptation, it's going to come in.
It will.
It's going to come in. I'm not feeling appreciated. I feel less than at home. Can somebody validate me? Can someone affirm my existence? Can someone make me feel good because my wife's not doing it? Vice versa, because it can happen for us as well.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's very easy for you to open yourself up to that temptation. That's the reason why I stand on the foundation, the fundamentals and the foundations of the word. If you follow the Bible, it's not hard to be married. That's like your layout. When people say, I don't know how to be married, go back
It'll
to God.
It'll teach you.
Get in your word.
Yes.
It's going to teach you how to be married.
Yeah. You know, I want to add on to what you said, though, because there's the nagging, but there's also something I had to learn, which is sharing an opinion, being quick to share your opinion, right? Because sometimes I feel like men can be very one-track minded. And I know my husband is. Once my husband gets a thought, he's very like, I'm going to do it, you know, and that's one thing that I loved about him. But sometimes it can be to a fault where he's like too determined and he doesn't see all possibilities. And so I find myself like, oh, but babe, maybe you should do this instead or do this, da, da, da. And I saw that sometimes it makes him feel like he perceives it as me saying that he doesn't know what he's doing. But what I'm really trying to do is, babe, I see a better way. You may not be seeing that, you know, because sometimes as women, we're seeing all the details. But I've learned that there are times where I can say a little something, pull back, give it to God. Sometimes we do know, sometimes we can see it. And there are a lot of times, and I know he's going to see this, there's a lot of times where he knows I'm right. And he'll come back like, you know what, babe, you were right. That's happened multiple times. I said, I know, babe, I know. But I've learned now, I don't need to share my opinion. Be slow to give an opinion as a woman, because sometimes all they need is for you to say, babe, you can do it.
Yes.
And in our prayer closets, when we say, Lord, guide him, because I can see this, he can't see this, but Lord, I give it to you. Help him to see this.
In the closet.
Yes,
okay?
in the prayer closet.
I wish they knew how much praying we do behind closed doors. It's like,
man, the praying all day, not even just for them, but for the kids, for the home. And that's like you talk about sacrifices that a woman makes. Because one thing I always say, and I want to get your opinion on this, because for me, I felt like I play so many different roles. So there's Zae. There's the Zae, which is the woman in me. But then I am a mother, right? And I am a wife. And okay, I'm an author, right? But I always say that sometimes I struggle with when to turn one on and when to turn the other off. So then I come into, okay, the wife side is doing all these different things, but the woman side of me needs a little something else. And I struggle with the balance, right? Because we're prayer warriors, but sometimes that takes a lot out of you. There were times where I'm like, God, I don't know if I can pray this much anymore. I don't want a war. I don't want to be praying. I want somebody to pray for me. It's a lot. And I think I tried to explain that to my husband one day, like, babe, there are different roles. So he's like, aren't you all of them? I said, yes, babe, but sometimes I need you to speak to the woman in me, not the wife in me, or not the mother in me, where you're like, let me take the kids from her for a little bit, get some space. That helps the mother in me, but what about the woman in me? And I don't think he understood. But I want to know if you understand, if you can break that down a little bit better for other people, right? Women who may go to their husbands and say, I need you to speak to the woman in me. I need you to help this side of me. I have all these roles. You're helping me here and here, but here is where I really need you to speak to the woman in me.
So you'll have to communicate that. So that's something that we practice, like even in my practice with couples, is removing labels, right? Even when I tell my couples when things are going up, we still have to understand that both of us are human beings. So sometimes you have to have that conversation with yourself first, and then with the other person. Let me strip myself of these labels. But when you have the conversation, hoping that you have the safety within your partnership to be able to have that conversation. But tell them that this is going to be a very emotionally raw moment, and I need you to just see me as a human. For me, luckily, I've never had to have that conversation because I know how to turn it off, right? I would tell myself I can't come in as the coach in my marriage, right? But there are some moments where I just want my husband to talk to me as a friend.
Yes. Yeah.
But
yeah.
he'll know just based off of how we move the conversation. But sometimes it starts off with you and just simply telling your spouse so they don't come in with expectations. Look, don't, right now, I'm not wife.
Right.
Okay. Right now, I'm not wife.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not author.
Yeah.
I'm not none of that. I am just a human being
Yeah.
who is facing this world, and I need to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to sometimes tell your spouse, come on, just strip me of the labels right now. If you have the safety within your spouse, they'll completely understand that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's not always easy because we're human beings. And so our
Yeah.
subconscious plays a major part. Our memory is going to play a major part. So I can try to strip myself, but you're still my husband. You're still my wife. But it takes a lot of training to do that. For you, when you enter those spaces, maybe that's something that you can add into your prayer to allow yourself to show up in a vulnerable and emotionally raw space and let your partner know that, to be able to communicate that. If the message needs to be within you, if I come in as the author, or if I come in as a wife in this conversation, or the mother in this conversation, is it going to get me the result that I want from this conversation? No. So you know what? All these labels are going to be left here. I am strictly just a human being right now, and I need you to see me as that.
That's good. Yeah.
Maybe you can just open up the conversation and communicate it that way.
Yeah, maybe I'll start that way. And I love my husband, but I will say, I know that our communication is where we struggle. And I know most marriages do, but it took a lot of healing for me to be able to understand that the absence of some things from him doesn't mean that he doesn't care. It doesn't mean that it's not effective. It's just, he is learning it a different way and I'm communicating this way. So I'm learning now how to translate how I feel and be more vulnerable. Because sometimes I think, based off of how I was in previous relationships and even as a child, being afraid to voice how I feel, like that not being heard. So sometimes I go into it like, I don't know if he's going to hear me, right? Already. But I'm learning to shed all of that. So now I understand if I come in, like I said, I got to take off my coat, take off my jackets. Hey, babe, this is me, human, talking to you. This is just Zae. No, this is not your wife right now. This is not mom. This is just, so.
If you have, and I heard you speak about your fear of uncertainty and the unknown earlier. And then that still can tie into that fear of vulnerability. Right. And that fear of vulnerability can also show up as an inability to trust. Right. You're going to have to be able to take the risk and don't create assumptions or narratives in your mind that's preventing you, because fear is going to create avoidance. So if you assume something's going to go a certain type of way, even if you catastrophize and you assume the worst of it, then it's probably going to end up going that way because of you, right? Because you're already coming in with a negative perception of how things are going to go. You have to be willing to take the risk. Now, if I have the risk and I have a vulnerable moment and you turn down that moment when I'm being vulnerable and maybe you shut me out, I'm going to let you know that when I had this vulnerable moment, I felt as though you shut me down. I'm going to tell you that, but I'm not going to stop because I realize that maybe you need to see that. Maybe I need to be the model so that way you can allow me to be vulnerable and you can create the safety that I need. But you won't know what safety I need if I never allow myself to take the risk.
That's true. Yeah, that's good.
So,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take it there.
No,
but I figure, I know there's a lot of women out there who feel that, where it's like, my husband is great in all these other areas, but it's like here, it's like, there's a little discrepancy. But I think that's what it is, voicing to them, I don't need you to cater to the mother in me or the wife in me right now. I just need you to cater to the human in me. Right. So that's good. I think.
Baby, I felt like I had therapy. Wait a minute now. Look, I'm always the one that have to have the sessions. I'm like, hold on, wait, maybe I needed this.
Yeah, this
a
is
little
good.
bit.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that because I know it's going to be a lot of my clients that see that. Okay. No, I appreciate you so much for this conversation. This was such a beautiful, spiritual, and therapeutic conversation. And I know there are so many people who need to have this conversation and so many people who need to hear this. You have touched, I know you have touched, because you touched me. You've touched me with this testimony. And I know it's going to be so many people who need this conversation, and you're going to be that person to help them. So thank you so much. I appreciate you for your time.
Thank
and of course,
you.
I'm hoping I get to have a conversation with you again.
Yes, amen.
Especially since you're right up the street.
Literally around the corner. Literally around the corner.
I appreciate you for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, babies, that has been another episode of Talk to Me, Kittie. I will see you all on the next episode. Bye, babies.